Muy buenos días a todas,
Buenos
bienvenidas,
días.
bienvenidas a todas a esta
Welcome
sexta
one to
sesión de
this
la asistencia
sixth
técnica
session
especializada del
of the
Challenge de
Technical
Acceso a
Assistant of the
Financiamiento de
Access to
Mujeres Connect
Financing
América.
Challenge of Women's Connect
Esperamos que
America.
estén
And we will
claro para
start
cualquier
with
emprendedora,
our
cualquier
session for
empresaria, ¿sí?
today.
Un tema
We
clave
have
para
a
la
key
administración financiera de los
subject for
pymes es
the
la gestión
finance
del flujo de
administration
caja,
for a
el
small
manejo
and
de la
medium
deuda
enterprise that has to do
indicadores
with the
financieros claves
cash
para el
flow
fortalecimiento y
management
la
and how to
sostenibilidad de sus
manage debt
negocios.
and
La
the
idea es
key
que al final de
financial
esta sesión se
indicators. The
puedan
idea
llevar
is that at the end of
buenos
this
hábitos
session, you will
financieros y puedan
take
ver
with
cómo estos
you
buenos hábitos financieros
good
pueden
habits,
transformar su
financial
empresa.
habits, and
Así que
that
sin mayores
can enable
dilaciones le
you to
vamos a dar la
transform
palabra
your
a Tonia
company.
para que arranque la
Without
sesión de hoy.
more
Muchas gracias a
for
todas.
myself, I give the floor to Tonia. Thank you very much to every one of you.
Hola, buenos días.
Hello, Rocio.
Y ya fue la
Hello,
última sesión
hello.
de formaciones de Increíble.
We
Estamos
will we did
haciendo así,
several
desarrollando
meetings
esta
several
última
sessions that were
sesión de
incredible.
formaciones de Increíble y
And
nos toca
remember
como
that
esta
these
semana
trainings are
última
really good
sesión
for us.
ha sido un
Um,
gran placer.
it
Y
has been a
hoy
pleasure
quiero compartir algo
for
con
us
ustedes
to
que
be here.
Rocío ya lo
I
hizo.
would like to share something with
Básicamente algo
Rocio
sobre
that it has to
la
do
gestión de
with
la
what
deuda
we
o
have
de la
managed
inversión, pero
and the
también quiero
investment,
recapitular un poco
but
las cosas
also
que hemos hablado en las semanas
what we
anteriores.
have talked
Y
in
voy
this
a ver,
week.
compartiendo mi pantalla. Creo que se puede ver. Vale.
Se ve
Y como
perfecto.
siempre,
Everything is
vale.
correct.
Y como siempre,
And as I
empezamos con
always
la
say,
recapitulación de la semana pasada
let's
y la
recap
semana
with
pasada
last
hemos
week.
hablado de
We
cómo
have
construir
talked
un plan de
about
negocio
how to build your business case
para
to
preparar las
prepare
conversaciones con
your
financieros
conversations, to prepare your
y hemos
chat
hablado
with
de
the
cómo
funders. And we have
saber qué
talked about
productos suelen
how
los financiadores
to know
suelen
how
hacer,
the
qué
funders
indicadores siguen en el
usually
análisis
ask
de
or how do they
financiamiento y sobre todo qué
revise or
política de
your
lucimientos suelen
application
seguir o suelen
when you are asking for some funding.
acerca
Which list of
de la
documents do you
presentación a
need?
una solicitud de financiamiento.
And when you're
También
applying
estuvimos
for a
hablando
funding,
la semana
which
pasada sobre
application
la
you're going to
respuesta y
present.
la
And we have
resolución
talked about
en
some
este caso.
questions
La
last
primera
week, which
pregunta
I didn't
que
answer
era
to.
sobre
The
cómo
first question
demostrar
has
los
to do
inversores el
with
impacto
how to
que
demonstrate
una
the
empresa,
impact
una empresa
investors.
que ya
For
existe
example, if one company already
tiene o que está
exists,
cambiando
but it's
fuertemente su
changing
negocio.
the
Bueno,
focus,
para pasar
how
mucho
is
tiempo
it
explicando
strongly
por qué
changing? I'm not going to
esta
talk
puede
too
ser
much about
bastante simple
this
y lo
because it's something
importante
that is rather
siempre
simple.
las conversaciones con
But the
financiadores
important part with the conversations with funders is
transparencia, la
honesty,
transparencia, la consistencia, la honestidad, porque
transparency,
estás intentando
consistency,
crear un
honesty.
sentimiento
You're
de
trying
confianza y
to
de
create
confianza.
this feeling,
Quieren
this sense
que
of
piensen
trust.
que estoy
They
trabajando
want
para
to
una emprendedora
understand
seria,
what you're
una persona
working
que
in,
sabe lo que quiere hacer
what you
para
want to
conseguir
do for the
realmente y
future,
quiere
that you're someone
explicarles
that it's
cómo
aligned with your
paso a
goals,
paso,
that
más
you know how to
al
do
día a
what
día
you
de
want
la
to do,
empresa,
which are the steps that you're going to
presencialmente,
take
de
that will
verdad,
help
tener
you
ese
grow,
impacto más
that will
real y
help your
potencial.
company grow,
Así que
to
en estas conversaciones
um,
era importante explicar
have
por
a
qué este cambio de
greater
negocio
impact. For
es
example,
necesario.
these conversations are really important to
Creo que ha
explain
visto una
the change on
oportunidad en el
focus,
mercado o
and
una
it's really
oportunidad
necessary
que
to
se puede
see the
utilizar
opportunity in the
para
market, to see
definir un
which
problema que
is
puede
your
ser
market
resolver.
opportunity, and,
Y
for example, to
oportunidades de
define or to
problema
address
siempre
any issue that
lo
you
vais
might
a ver en
have, to
pensamiento
see that
estratégico
opportunity or
y
that issue or that problem, and that you can be able to solve it, to try to explain that also to the funder, that you can
También vas a ver
solve that problem, one which is your proposal for the investor investment that they are going to make. Something interesting is to define the impact indicators, as we talked last week. The investors that are also commercial ones. I mean, they are business people. Which is the return on investment that they have, on their investment. Also, it is important to obtain,
Así que los indicadores de
when
impacto
we talk about the environment, which are these indicators, the metrics, which are these impact indicators, what are you going to achieve? Often, sometimes it's the same platform, and if you have initial data,
prácticas, la demanda o
try to show the
necesidad de
demand that you're going to need to address your solution.
el impacto con la
Try to include this and to connect with the logic behind that impact.
cualquier cosa para
In what you're going to do, because you need to change your focus in order to complete or to comply with your goals. And what this change will help you to obtain this impact, how it will improve, and how you can increase your impact.
lo más importante, como he dicho aquí, es
Also, you need to pay attention to the planning behind this measurement. What is more important is that you have a a route a road that you can verify. Something that we have talked last week. I would like also to mention something else, which is the question. I mean, we have a very simple question that we have to make ourselves. We have most of the time a generalized fear to tell the investment that we have failed in sales, to show them which are our projections, what we are facing at the time. But we have to think which strategy can we think about? How can we build in order to overpass this problem, this trouble? For example, if I'm not selling at this moment, it is really important honesty, explanation, clarification also, because you need to chat, to talk about these issues with your investor, with the funder. For example, if we had a fall in sales on the last 2 months, for example, from 25% of a fall in our sales. Why is that? Maybe there has been a change in the market. Maybe you were restructuring something, or there might be several reasons for your fall in sales. The important thing for you to remember, you need to add to that conversation. If we had that fall in sales, even though we have it, we are implementing one action, a very concrete action, to address or to stabilize these sales. At the beginning, you're trying to relate this fact with what you're going to do in the future, or what your vision you can offer apart from what is happening at the moment. For example, you need to explain which is reason behind this fall in sales and what you're implementing to improve this situation, to improve this, and how the funding is going to help you maybe accelerate or recover your sales. I also want to mention something else regarding this, because I know this is something that is typically occurring. I know that many entrepreneurs, many businesswomen do this. For example, when we achieve our goals, we are talking about failure when we cannot achieve our goal. But I would like to share something with you, 2 examples that I know of. I know these 2 people which I'm going to mention about. These persons are inspirers. They are legends. Thomas Edison and Michael Jordan. Both of these persons, I know, of course, you may know Michael Jordan. He's a basketballer from the United States. And Thomas Edison, he was the inventor of the lighting bulb. They have failed a lot of times, 1,000 times before making it work, before making their invention. I mean, they can
he encontrado
fall, they can get flaws, and they can find 1,000 ways for it not to work. And the next time they will find
voy a lograr.
one solution, that you will find one way that it works. You will achieve your goal. You will be able to solve it. This happened with Michael Jordan also. He failed more throws than the ones that he achieved. That is really important to remember. We have to reformulate, to try to redefine the failure. What is failure? What is failing in something? This has to be this has to be redesigned, or as a learning, as a training. You have to learn, you have to train, you have to achieve something from your failure. Okay, I failed, but I learned. So now I will create a plan for the future. I will develop a plan in which I will include this learning, this training, this thing that I've learned, and I will try to make something important, to try to be this plan as transparent as possible, in order to show how I'm going to solve any problem that I can occur. And you need to demonstrate, or to show that you have control of your company, and to show that you have concrete data, concrete information. For example, if you have a fall in sales of a 25%, know that what is happening, why that is happening, and how you will improve that situation, and to recover the sales that you have. Okay.
So, objectives for today's session: to understand why good financial habits are important for the health of your business, to understand the role of cash flow. And as I've said, this information is also included on the online training course, so you can review all these topics and improve your knowledge. And identified good versus bad debt. And it's important to know to avoid getting in debt. And how to learn to use 4 simple KPIs. I will explain about these very simple indicators to monitor the health of your company. Cash flow. Just let me say a very important thing about this. You may have a lot of earnings, a very viable company, and still fail and as a company because of your cash flow. It is so important to plan the money that goes out of your company, but at the same time the money that comes in. So it is important to keep track of this, to stay afloat as a company. It is important for the resilience, because I've seen some examples in many businesses that they collapse once they have received a lot of funds because they do not have a proper management of cash flow. It's not about money that comes from a bank or an investor, but perhaps maybe an order for an important new customer, and they will tell you, okay, in a bank, in the case of a bank or an investor, they will tell you, you can have all this money, you can start investing or looking for new stuff, but you still do not have sales, and you have to pay salaries. Or perhaps you have a new order for an important client, you start investing on materials, inputs, everything you need to produce or manufacture your product to comply with this order. And you have bills to pay, but you haven't collected the money from your customer. And perhaps the payment plan is once you have delivered your goods or service. So it is very important to plan the money that comes in and out of your company.
saber si tienes ganancias
It's
o no.
really
Puedes tener ganancias,
really
pero si
important
todas las
because
ganancias
if you
vienen
have a
en
lot of
diciembre,
earnings, but
tienes
you
11
will
meses
collect the
de
money
pagar
by
facturas y no
December,
tienes
and you
dinero, no
before
vas a
that
sobrevivir.
deadline, you have to
Aquí tienes la
survive. You have to
opción de
pay a lot
entender
of things.
si
So it
obtendrás
is very
ganancias,
important to
utilidad de una
understand
pérdida de lo que es la
where
pérdida,
your
¿no?
money will
Es
come
también
from.
muy importante manejar
And at the
las
same
entradas y
time,
las
it is
salidas
important to
de
have a
dinero que
clear
tienes
knowledge of the money that
en tu
you will
empresa.
have to pay.
Lo que pasa en muchos casos
And
es
what
que
happens in
estos negocios
most of the
no prestan
cases is
bastante
that
atención a la
many of
gerencia
these
de
businesses
estos
do not
flujos de caja,
pay extra
literalmente
attention
este
to these
flujo de
cash
caja en su
flows
empresa
in the
y el
company.
beneficio,
And
no quiere decir que tienes
the
dinero en el banco, no quiere
profit
decir
doesn't mean
que
that you
tienes
have
la
money
plata
in
para
your bank
compras.
account. It doesn't
Así que
mean
el
that you will have enough
financiamiento,
money to pay
cuando
all
estés
your
lista para
commitments.
pedir
So
financiamiento,
once you are
el
ready to
financiamiento
request
es el
for
punto de
funding, the
partida, pero la
funding is the
resiliencia es lo que
starting
te
point,
mantiene
but
viva.
resilience is what will
Una
make
pequeña
your company
recapitulación, ya
afloat.
he
So
dado
some small
el primer
review.
ejemplo.
I've provided
Volviste
an
en marzo, pero ya
example.
tienes las
You
facturas
said
en
in
febrero, así
March,
que
but
las
in
diferencias de
February
tiempo
already you
son
have
el
bills to pay.
asesino, quizás lo más
So
importante
the,
cuando,
the,
cuando
the
estamos
most
hablando
important
de
thing
flujos de
when we
caja.
talk about
Esas
cash flow
diferencias
is
de
this
tiempo, es por eso que
time
tendrás que
differences. So
planificar muy
you
bien
will have to plan
las entradas y
extremely
salidas.
well
El
the
impacto de la
money that
deuda
comes
en el
in
flujo
and
de
out,
caja. Ok,
and the impact of that in the
creo que lo
cash
he dicho la
flow.
semana pasada,
I think we
que
talked about this
cuando
last
utilizas
week.
un préstamo,
When you use a
el
loan,
aumento o la
the
aumentación de tus
increase
ingresos, sobre
in
todo
your incomes,
tus ganancias,
especially in
tu
your
margen bruto,
earnings, your
el dinero que te
grow
queda, la
margin, the money that
ganancia
you have
neta
left, the
mensual,
net
debería ser
monthly
más
earning should be
que el
higher
pago,
than
la cuota
the
de pago del préstamo mensual. Si es
installment,
más,
monthly
ganancia es
installment of your
más alta
payment.
que lo que
If
debes
your
pagar
earning is higher
para
than what you
devolver el
have to
préstamo,
pay to
puede ser
return
interesante aceptar ese
the
préstamo.
loan, that might
Pero
be an
en el caso
interesting
de
choice,
deuda,
an interesting
son tus
loan to
ganancias que
accept.
deberían
But
pagar
your
esos,
earnings should
estas
pay
cuotas.
for this
No vas a olvidar la
installments.
deuda si
You
no
are
puedes
not supposed
obtener
to
este
use
crecimiento
any other
en
money if
ingresos,
you
en
cannot
ventas,
have
en
this
ganancias.
concept of growing in your
También es
earnings.
importante planificar los
It is
pagos
also
de
important
deuda
to
porque pueden
plan
generar
the debt
presión
payments because that
si
can
no
create pressure
incluyes como
if
otra
you
vez
do
estas
not
salidas y
include
entradas de
this
dinero.
money that
Y
comes in and
esto
out.
lo último no tengo que
And
explicarlo. Si
I
vas a
don't have to
cambiar el
explain
dinero
the
para
last
otros
thing
fines,
because you need to
tendrás un problema.
you're not supposed to
Ya
change
hemos
your
visto
money for the use of your money. We've
herramienta
seen how
a ver cómo salgo de
tool.
aquí.
Let me
Ya hemos
see
visto
how I
herramienta que puedes utilizar
share
para
this
manejar
tool.
tu
We've
flujo
talked
de
about
caja.
this tool that you can use
Quiero, no
to
sé por qué no
manage
quiero
your
salir.
cash
Ahí
flow.
está. Quiero compartir otra
Let
vez
me share
esta
once again
plantilla.
this template with you.
Y Rocío, creo que
And
los tenemos
Rocio,
como
I
los
think
materiales de la
we have this
tercera
included
sesión.
in the materials of
Sí,
the
lo tienen
third
disponible en,
session.
en el
Yes,
campus virtual.
you have all
En
this
la sesión
information,
3,
this
dentro de
template
los
in the
materiales después
virtual
en clase,
campus
pueden
on
encontrar este
the
archivo.
third
Igual
session.
también
If you go there,
voy
you
a
can
compartirlo en
access
portugués
this
y en
file.
inglés
I will share
por si
them,
les
the
quieren
information
interesar.
both in Portuguese and
Es una
English.
plantilla gratuita que
This
se
is
puede
a
usar
free template
en el
that
campus
you
virtual,
can
pero está
find
en
on the
línea, como
virtual
pueden ver
campus.
aquí.
It is an
Y
online
se ve aquí en español,
tool.
pero
Here we
también,
have it in Spanish, but
también
it's also
lo
available
tenemos
in
aquí en inglés,
Portuguese
lo puedes
and
utilizar,
English. You
y
can use
también
it
lo
in the
tenemos
language
aquí
that you
en
prefer.
portugués. Y esta plantilla te
And
ayudará
this
por mes,
template
puedes ver aquí
will
los
help
meses,
you.
los
You can see
trimestres.
all the months,
Te
the
ayuda y
first
puedes
quarter.
cambiar aquí, por
You
ejemplo,
can, for
los números.
instance,
Quizás no tienes un
change
reembolso
the
de impuestos, no sé.
information. Perhaps
O
you
quizás
do
no
not
tienes
have a
reembolsos
tax
o
reimbursement,
intereses.
but
Puedes cambiar
you
esos
can
nombres aquí,
customize it. You
agregar lo
can
que
change the
necesitas,
name
gastos
on this
operativos,
column.
gastos
You can
adicionales,
change and
para
adapt the
ver
information
cuál es el
according to
resultado,
your
cuál es la situación
need.
de caja
and you can see the results by the end of the month. And in this case, you can see that this company, in this company, things are not going very well. I don't know if this company will survive. It's not a very inspiring example, let me say that. You can use this template to monitor cash flow in your company. And if you want to understand a bit more about this cash flow and how it works, you can review the online training course. But it is very simple tool to use, the money that comes in and the money that goes out on a monthly basis. That's the movement in your company. Rocio, the floor is yours.
To add to what you're mentioning right now, and moreover, because we are reaching the end of the sessions of this technical assistant, you can revisit or try to see once again the takeaways that you can download from the inclusive funding course for SMEs. Remember that you will have there a very practical and schematic way where you can show your financial states. For example, if you want to show the balances, you can download the information in order to make your own balances. For example, you can use the takeaways. You will find a summary there that will show you all the tools that Tonia shared with us, and try to find all that information, all that theoretical material that Tonia shared with us during these sessions. Okay, thank you, Rocio. I will do a quick recap. The good debt, it's related to the growth of the revenue or the reduction in cost. And the bad debt, it's to cover some operations without a repayment plan. So you want to help yourself grow, or you want to reduce costs. You need to try to think which is the solution that you want to get to. And another thing, another recap that it's really important to mention, for example, when we talk about the health debt and resilience, that you're going to never borrow money to pay salaries without revenue in sight. You need to remember and to understand the logic behind your business, to try to understand how your business works, how you can strengthen it to improve what you're already doing. If you're taking debt or investment, you will try to take care and to use it to increase your business, to improve it. To take debt, to repay another debt, it's not really logic. You're not going to take debt if you don't have a clear repayment source, as it says here in the point 3. Your revenue should be larger than the repayment installments. If your business is losing money and you don't know how to solve it, that is a trouble, that is a problem. If this happens, these are alert signals, but also these signals that you have here, these signals, these signs are early signs that you can use them to identify points of problem of issues that you need to resolve, of trouble that you have in your business, and to see how you can improve the functioning of your company, the operation of your company. For example, if you are trying to get money to pay some bills, for example, if you want to have some conversations with the funders, you need to show them that you're having trouble with your company. That will be clear for your funder, and how you will need that money to cover repayment or cover payments of other debts. If you're working with a bank or investor, you need to be transparent at the beginning. That is really important. It is really good to share all the information in this conversation that you're having with the funders, with the possible funders, and which is going to be the solution, or maybe you will try to find your solution together. And I would like to talk about stratification of your debt. For example, if you have layered, not stacked debt, to avoid asking for multiple instruments to do the same thing. This is a really important signal or sign for your funder. If you have, the funding logic should be layered. When I'm talking about layering, I'm not talking about stacking. When I'm talking about, it is stacking. What is stacking? This means strategic sequencing and complementarity. We have talked a lot about the importance of having this logic behind a sound one, to be clear, to have clarity about where you are right now, to show that your business model is working correctly. If you have a margin, for example, raw margin, to include it in your costs. If there are not hidden costs that you have forgotten to include when you're determining your prices. For example, the combination shows, if you have all of this combination of costs, shows that you have a reliable business, a strong business, and you can explain also how this plan is going to make you grow. You need to explain that, how you're going to use that funding that you're asking for, the loan, how are you going to use it? Or, for example, an investment. And of course, you will also have funding projections for the future. They need to have a logic behind and to try to build trust with your funder when they read all this information, all these details. If you're looking for money, maybe because you have an opportunity here, or so it is important for you to have that money because you're going to use it for the future, but I'm not sure that I'm going to use it, but maybe I will use it. This will be an option, and this is what we call stacking. For a funder, this is a signal. It's a red flag. It's an alert signal. It shows a funder that you are not in charge of your business. You're just trying to make decisions because maybe you have some fear for the future. So that is what the signal that you're showing the funder. You're not trustworthy enough. You don't trust your business, your sales, and that is why you're looking for money at that moment, because you are afraid of what is going to happen in the future if something happens, or maybe you will need it in the near future. This means to add combining different types of funding in a purposeful and complementary way. So this can mean to ask for an investment and a loan for the same purpose, for just one thing. You just want to do one goal. You want to justify how this funding fits in your company. So again, you need to explain the logic behind how you're going to use that money, which is the logic for your company, the logic behind your business model. And you need to show it, you need to be able to show it with funding projections, with financial projections, that you're going to increase your revenue, or maybe for the increase in sales, and that is why you will need this funding. You need to understand that the funding logic is coordinated, not redundant. It is important for you to take this donation, this loan or investment to scale or to grow. A funding combination of both sources can show your funders that you lack funding clarity or financial clarity, or that it is a bit entangled, or you're going behind money. You're just looking for money instead of building. It's not a strong company what you have in hands. When we talk about layering, it's a very different thing. Layering debt, that's what we're talking about. The difference with stocking is that you're adding funding in stacking, but in layering, it's like a ladder. We are going step by step. You have a financial logic behind. You have very clear how and when you're going to use your funding, in which stage of your company, in which phase of development of your company you're going to use it. And you can explain really clearly how you need it, why you need it, in which moment you will use it in the future. This means that you have a sequence for the future and you complement it with different types of funding, and each source covers one need or one risk, one specific one in each correct stage. For example, in the example that we have here, it doesn't mean that you need to do it as I'm showing it in the slide, but this is an example. We have 4 stages. In the first stage, you ask for a grant that it's going to use, we're going to use it to pilot a new delivery model, de-risks, to reduce risks in this innovation phase. And in the second step, the second stage, you will look for a short-term loan because I need working capital once the sales begin. The third stage, we are having profits from early sales, so we will reinvest these sales. This is going to be used to strengthen core operations because maybe you are building a very strong, solid company, and maybe you will have several options to expand to abroad, for example, to the rest of the world, or maybe you want to scale your company for 10% or something that is really interesting. So you will look for equity, you will look for venture capital, you will look for investors, you will look maybe for angel investments or greater investors in order to expand yourself to new markets. This is how we can structure as a ladder, this layering model, this type of funding, and you will be able to explain how you're going to use it, when you're going to use it, in order to get to a higher level. Now we will talk about how it's to generate credibility, how to make credibility, what is consistency. That is really important to be consistent in between how something works, how your business works, how your business model is, which are your plans, how are you going to achieve your goals, which is your development plan, which is your growth plan, which are your numbers, which are your projections that support your finance, your funding. You need to show this to your funder, how you're going to achieve your goals. It is really important also to talk about timeliness. When do you wait to achieve something? If you're going to take 2 weeks before you're going to send the answer, to tell them if you're going to send that in 2 days or in 2 weeks, you need to be very proactive regarding communication. to please tell them what is going to happen in your company. If you're working with an investor, what is going to happen next, to share. If you are proprietary, or if you own this company with other ones, to show that to the funders who are the owners of your company. It is really important to build this trust with the company and also with the other owners of your company, to think and to show them this is your plan. These are your ambitions, how you're going to achieve this, how you're going to build this. If you change your mind, you change what you're going to do, you need to understand that you will, this, this is going to change your information. You need to explain why you're thinking, what is your thinking behind your explanations. Why have you changed now what you're going to do in the future? You need to show or to make your investor and your bank understand what you're doing, which is the logic behind your way of thinking. You need to show that at the beginning, and you need to keep on showing the logic behind in the process. And you, of course, you need to achieve your goals of what you were going to say that you were going to do. What you're looking now, what funders look for, they look for sustainable margins. Maybe if you have hidden costs, which is your margin behind that, you need to be sustainable. You need to show that your goals are really, your costs are reliable, that your company is viable and reliable one, to show also that you have a reliable repayment history, to show your finance administration or your finance management history. It is really important for you to show it and to show the viability of your company and the growth that you're going to, your growth has to do with the development of your company. Maybe it has to do, the history that you will show with 6 months, or maybe you can show them for 3 years ahead or 5 years ahead of time. This is really important for you to show to the investor or your funder the history behind, because you're not only based in one client, you're going to be showing different clients. For example, if they ask for information, not only for one client, but from 3, 4, 5 clients, it is really important for you to show which are your revenue. And you need to understand that you have, for example, as it says, a diversified income base. You need to explain that, and the capacity to absorb a repayment shock. Also, what will happen if you lose one of your clients? What will happen? Can you survive? Your demand will change. If there's a fire in your office, will you be able to absorb this repayment shock? How have you used past funds? How is your finance? Are you going to be able to pay this problem that happens? And how did you use past funds? And what has it changed in your business, in your company? Remember how this has helped you to advance or to improve, and how you will use your future funding. And now we will talk about KPIs, key performance indicators. In English, this will be the development or the performance indicators that we have mentioned. These are metrics that you can calculate using data from your business. You can calculate or estimate them with the data, with the information from your business, and they will show you how your business is doing, how is it working. And as I always say, this shows how your business can succeed. This data shows, and it is really important for you to develop and to grow as a company. All this information, it has to be clear and it has to be included in order to understand where you're going. It is really important for you to understand the information that is going to be used in the future and to manage and build your company. It helps you to diagnose problems, to show where and when you are going to take action. And when we talk about the first KPI, it's net margin. It has to do with the net margin. It is the result of the net benefit, and I always this, that it has to be divided by, Rocio, help me, yes, divided by, this net benefit is divided by your revenue. For example, if you have a net benefit of 500, you need to divide it off 5,000. It will be a net benefit of a 10%. And this can help you, for example, in the template of the cash flow, and to plan a cash flow and to calculate your net benefit. This can be of a monthly net benefit, and it can show your funder how it will develop through the years. If it is a monthly one, it will see the funder will pay attention to that and to how you're showing month after month, how you're growing month after month. And then you have, as it says here, a healthy range varies by sector, but positive and stable is key. And the second one, you talk about the cash buffer that has to do with your funding reserve. If you don't have, if your costs are the same, how long will you survive? How long will your company survive without covering revenue? At least you can maybe survive 1 or 2 months. In my case, I don't like financial risk, so I would like to avoid this if I can. I always try to have a reserve of 4 to 6 months minimum in order to not to have a financial stress, not to have risks, or to have trust and to feel comfortable with my company, to have this reserve and to be able to follow and continue growing with my company. And the third KPI has to do with the repayment ratio. If you have enough money, you won't have stress. If you get a loan or debt, for example, you will have here the form, which is the formula behind of this repayment, has to do with loan repayment plus net income multiplied for 100. You will have, for example, a ratio, as it is shown here, of a 50%. This is an example. For example, and also if you have above 30 to 35%, can indicate some stress for your funders. You need to maintain a ratio below 30%. And the last KPI, it has to do with the sales concentration. We have already talked about this. For example, if your company only has a few clients, this can mean a higher risk because you will not maybe survive if you lose a client. Now, here, a summary of KPIs. You will see this in the template in the IDB Academy. You will also have some examples there for KPIs. They can explain how, as a general rule, you will need to maintain your company.
Let me tell you what we've talked about. We started with this question. Is your business ready for funding? I think this is the most important question, and I hope that by the end of this session of training, you will be able to answer this question with perhaps with a no or yes, and in each case try to have discussions with investors. We've also talked about if your company is is really making money. Do you have a viable plan, a solid foundation to grow, to increase your company? Is your business plan ready for funding? Do you have all the information that a funder will ask you? Have you included that in your business plan? We've shared with you a template for this. We've also talked about how to create a solid financial case. What type of information should be included there in a solid financial case? How to create financial projections and the relationship between financial projections and business plan and your gross margin. This business logic, how do you sell? How do you create income? I think that was the question in the first or second session. Last week, we've talked about what do funders look for, how to prepare yourself. We've shared a very complete list of things, of documents that they might request. That depends on the country. And we've also talked about how to keep your business healthy. And the summary of all the total information: funders fund logic. They do not fund hope. I've repeated this a lot. They will not look for hope. And it is very important to understand their numbers because your numbers tell your story. If you have your financial record, that is very important for them. Your business plan is perhaps you have a lot of businesses, but that is a living tool. It's not something that you will just write one time and never use it once again. You will need it every time you request fund. Financial health is built through habits, not funding rounds. So we've shown a lot of tools that you can use to compile all the information for your company and to keep it in a healthy way. Not all money is good money. And that is linked with the next point. That is a tool, not a trap. If you need to cook, you will look for an oven, but if you want to eat, you will look for a spoon. You will not use the spoon to cook a meal, and you will not use the oven to eat. So that might be interesting to see, but it's not possible to do that. So it is important for you to use the most convenient tool for you, the tool that will help you to do what you want to do. So in this case, consider this as a tool and to analyze all the options and choose the best one. The risk capital, the investment, it seems easy, but it takes a lot of time. For instance, if you want to invite an investor into your company, it's like a marriage relationship because you will be with this investor all the time, and it will be like a couple for you. So it is important to analyze what type of investment do you need, which is the best investor for you, the one that will help you the most to move forward with your company. And if you are ready and if you want to share the rest of your business life with them, if not the rest, during a lot of time. And consistency builds trust, and it is important to construct resilience, to build resilience before looking for funding. And before we close, let me once more share a last template with you.
Es una autoevaluación que pueden utilizar.
This is a self-evaluation for you to use at the end of this session to assess your health and your preparation for that. This is a strategic coherence. You have a lot of questions to get to know your payment capacity, a lot of important signals for funders, and a final reflection. This is important to answer the question if your company is ready or not for funding.